Have you ever been trapped in a conversation? Just you wished that you'd built yourself an out.
Yes.
You wish that you'd built an escape plan.
Yeah.
A hatch to
Yeah.
jump out of,
Yeah.
to get out of the conversation because they got you. They caught you. And there's no getting out.
Yeah. It makes me think of watching, I showed Yvonne the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. She'd never seen it.
Yeah.
And
I already know who you're talking about,
Collins.
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Collins is one of those people that's like, oh, Mr. Collins, hurry, go this way, go this way.
What
and
excellent boiled potatoes.
everybody's hiding from Mr. Collins.
Yeah.
Oh, and the guy who plays him is so good.
Fantastic.
And so, yeah, escape plans are something we have to do. I remember as a youth pastor, sometimes I had parents who would tell their teenagers, I thought was great advice, that if you're ever in a situation where you're uncomfortable, you want to get out, whatever happens, I will come pick you up, no questions asked. Mm. And they said they did that because they wanted their child to know you won't get in trouble for calling me. Because they said, I'd rather them call me than not call me because they're afraid of getting in trouble. Mm. And I thought, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it gives the child that safety thing of, I will come rescue you wherever you are, no matter what, even if you're out doing something you're not supposed to be doing. I will come get you. And then I know for me, as a guy, sometimes you have these weird thoughts. I don't know if you guys do it, but I do. You have these imaginative things that happen of, what if I was attacked right now? Like sometimes I'll be running or riding my bike, and it's like, what if that dog comes after me? What would I do?
Everyone's had that.
And I've done that to where I think, okay, I could run to this part of the yard and grab the real estate sign and then impale the dog on the side. You know, or what if this guy attacks me? And you just have this where you're playing out these taken scenarios, you know, and you say, okay, I don't have a gun. What can I do? And you start looking around for weapons and all this. And I think it's something we all do. And it's kind of like your own little escape plan.
Oh, absolutely. I remember one time I was raking the yard for my grandma, and she has a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
And one of them was very large and, you know, kind of like not a bulldog, a mastiff.
Yeah.
And it was just growling at me. And it was just staring me down, growling. And I was thinking to myself, like, how could I break this rake to turn it into a weapon?
Yep.
You know, like, and you're right. You mentally create those escape plans. And a lot of times by the time you start making the plan, it's already too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you're already in it.
Yeah.
But the question is, how can we make a good escape plan for the area of gratitude?
Yeah.
It's not a question of if we're going to run into a time when our mind spirals into negativity.
Yeah.
It's really a question of how many times a week will that happen,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And so having an intentional plan, having something like, oh, when my headspace goes downhill, I'm going to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
That is a huge asset
It
that
is.
can really help us to deal with the natural parts of life that are negative.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're going to talk about what that looks like and how to do that today on the show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you build a thriving life and conquer your everyday chaos. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And I've definitely been wearing these glasses the entire time. I wore them in the intro for sure.
Oh, for sure. They were there.
100%.
Don't go back and watch.
Nope, don't pay attention to that. And to distract you more, Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
As you can see, if you're watching the video version, we have a nativity here in the middle.
That's right.
A 3-piece set. I
Yeah.
guess technically 4 pieces.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Jesus is it's a different piece in the
Yeah,
manger,
he's separate.
right?
So it's 4-piece.
Yeah, it's a 4-piece nativity set just to celebrate the birth of the Lord. And if you want to learn about why holidays are significant for gratitude, go check our previous episode.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and jump in. It's Christmas Day.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know, it's Happy Holiday. We were singing that before
We
this.
were.
But we're talking about building an escape plan. And let's be honest. You need an escape plan for the holidays sometimes.
Yeah.
You'll be on a Christmas day and your family will be just chaotic evil, just doing craziness. And you're like, how do I get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
How do I not beat up on my nephew who's just punching me incessantly right now? So that's we're talking about real life stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's look at the last episode we talked about rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really important. And so now we're talking about essentially emergency management.
Yeah, and that's what we want to remember, that what we're talking about today is not to be normal. You don't want to have escape plans to be your everyday life.
Right.
It's kind of like that person who lives stressed out all the time. Well, they're finding that the more stressed you feel, the more cortisol gets released into your body, the worse it is for you. Mm-hmm. So what you want to do is build regular rhythms of gratitude. That's what last week's show is about. This week's show is almost like triage. Okay, you're in a rough situation. You find yourself in a headspace going down. Some hard things are happening. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. I know in recovery they talk about that. When you find yourself in that zone where you're going to go act out, you put those things into your life to spin out, to do things to break that cycle of addiction.
Right.
And I think we can do the same thing with the negative aspects in our life. And if you find yourself regularly getting into these realms, you want to look at what are the regular rhythms of your life.
That's a good point.
But we all have things happen. We all have things where, okay, emergency management, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it?
Yeah.
Because if we don't have an escape plan, sometimes we turn to negative things.
Oh, yeah.
Like the guy who blows up on everybody every Christmas, screams at everybody or whatever in the family when he's stressed out. Or you'll go and
hit the eggnog,
the
spiked eggnog, and go for it.
Yeah, you'll hit alcohol. You'll hit
unhealthy
food.
One.
You tend to, when you don't have a regular thing to do with your stress and your anger or whatever, and you're not feeling very grateful, you tend to act out on other people and do things. And so what we're saying is have an escape plan. Have something that you do that you can, okay, I'm getting in this mindset. Even if you just feel yourself going down, where you're starting to beat yourself up and, oh, my life stinks. Nobody likes me. I fail at everything. I know a lot of guys who live their life in that way.
Yeah.
And they never get out of it. So what we want to say is, what are you going to do when you find that happening? And we're saying, get an escape plan. Put together a plan of things you're going to do. It could be multiple things, but something that, okay, I'm feeling down. Let me go do this right now.
Mm-hmm. It's an escape plan helps prevent escapism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because,
oh gosh, I love that. That was really good.
Well, we've talked about escapism and how it can be a negative thing.
Yeah.
Escapism is, I hate my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to run away.
Yeah.
Like, forget trying to fix it. Forget trying to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just get away from it and let's start from level 0 in this game.
Yeah.
Or let's go try and sleep with this girl, or let's go just get hammered. That's escapism, not healthy.
Yeah.
Because you're beginning to use unhealthy escape methods all the time.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is an escape plan. No matter how good you are at engineering your life, even if you obey God 100%, you've got all your values lined up, you're living your priorities, life will still kick you in the teeth. It does.
Yeah.
People die.
Yeah.
Accidents happen. People get sick.
Yeah.
All kinds of things. Jobs get eliminated or whatever. People blow up on you. People are in a bad mood and turn it on you. Life will happen. And so what we're talking about here is an escape plan is an intentional way to say, when that happens, I'm going to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to think through it and kind of have it planned out. It's kind of like one of my favorite things about spy movies is you'll see, like, one of my favorite ones is Red, when Bruce Willis was the, I think, ex-CIA guy. Well, they end up attacking his house at one point. And you see him in the basement, hitting the concrete floor. But what he's doing is he's pulling out this bag that's his go bag. So it's got money, it's got guns, it's got IDs. It's his escape plan. It wasn't easy to get to because it wasn't made to be used all the time. And that's the point of an escape plan for you. Don't use it all the time, but when you need it, you have it. It's there. And one of the first things we say you need to do, if you find yourself going into that negative mind space where you're spiraling a little bit out of control, is you want to shift your attention. You want to get away from where your mind is going currently and maybe get into a thing of, what am I thankful for? Maybe it's you write a list of things you're thankful for and you keep it somewhere either on your phone or somewhere easily accessible. You find yourself going negative, go to your list. Start saying it, even if you say it out loud, things I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
You can even write scriptures in it, scriptures that help encourage you to be thankful for things. I'm thankful for breath. I'm thankful for my salvation. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for whatever. If you have a list and you start saying that list out loud, that can help you kind of shift your attitude a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to make everything better. I'm just saying it's going to help your attitude get shifted away from the negative spiral to where at least you're leveling off.
Leveling off is a good word.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you're not trying to make it to where like, okay, I feel terrible and I want to be happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
I want to skip back into the house where everyone's fighting,
Yeah.
We're just trying to level you out.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. I think another method of shifting your attention is having a question that requires you to begin to interact with it in a positive way.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example from the book, The 4-8 Principle. Fantastic book that's pretty much all about this.
Yeah, it is.
The author, Tommy Newberry, his son broke his arm. And so his arm's in a cast. And his son started getting into this headspace where it's like, I can't do this now. I can't do that now. I can't do this now. I can't do that now. And he's like listing all the things that he can no longer do. And the dad just asked him a question. He's like, well, give me a list of 20 things you can do. No, he asked him for a list of 5 things he could do.
Yeah.
And once he reached the list of 5, he was like, let's keep going. Because he started to get in a headspace that required him to say, okay, no, I can't do those things. That's true.
Yeah.
But what are the things I can still do? What are the things I can still enjoy?
Yeah.
And he got on that train track and it really shifted his attitude around.
Yeah.
So we can have a list that we go to that we've pre-created,
Yeah.
or we could have a question that forces us to begin to set a different path in our brain.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm annoyed by the fact, like, let's say you got in a fight with your wife and she just blew up on you and you're mad. Well, okay, I'm going to list 10 things that I love about my wife.
Yeah.
Well, then that all of a sudden starts to bring a more well-rounded view, because when you are in a fight, you tend to view each other as just the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you start thinking and then you realize, oh my gosh, she's great.
Yeah.
Now I'm annoyed at this, but overall she's amazing.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying. When you shift your attention, it's different. You're not just running away. And that's where, when we say escapism, there are times to decompress, to do things to kind of get away from the stress. That's normal. But when you make that your escape route, what you're doing is you're essentially just turning your mind off and you're letting something else control you for a while, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, a game, whatever. So what you want to do is be intentional about your thought process. That's why we say shift your attention. You're being intentional about where you're thinking, what you're thinking about. That's why it's different from escapism. Questions do that. A list does that. Listing out things. What you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm looking here. I'm going to intentionally turn and look here. Where escapism is, I'm looking here. I'm just going to cover my eyes for a little bit. When I move this, they'll still be there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so what we're saying is shift your attention, which means change your perspective, and that'll help you kind of get out of that negative spiral, and you can move in a different direction from there. Doesn't mean things are going to get better. It just helps your attention be a little bit more focused on what you're grateful for, and a lot of times that can help you process through whatever the negative thing is that's happening.
Yeah, I think shifting attention is one of the core things. Another one that we can sometimes underestimate is doing something physical.
It's true.
That, I'll be real, y'all, that has helped me so much. Like I remember, I'll give you 2 examples.
Yeah.
Example number 1, whenever mom passed away, I dealt with a lot of anxiousness, like anxiety. And what I would do when I got really anxious is I'd go for a run. Because you can't think about anything except the fact that you need to keep breathing when you go for a run.
That's true.
Because it sucks,
Yeah.
like running, you're just like, And so if I really was starting to spiral, I'd go for a run because it would force me, like your brain can't be spiraling when all you can think about is left, right, left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
So that's an example with like the negative spiral of anxiousness.
Yeah.
But then also, like we talked about, it when you're frustrated with somebody else. Like I remember, I think it was our first year, like first year or two of being married. At one point, Emily and I got in a big fight.
Yeah.
And it was like 10:30 or 11 p.m.
Of course.
Yeah. And I was like, I got to go on a walk or else I'm going to say a bunch of stuff I'm going to regret, Because once you say something, you can't take it back.
No.
And so I was like, in this headspace, it's not going to be good. So I went for a walk. And I started walking, and about halfway into my walk around the neighborhood, a cop car pulled up. Because, I'm just some dude walking around at 11 p.m. at night, and he's like, "What you doing here, son?" And I was like, "Honestly, officer, my wife and I got in a fight, so I'm walking to cool off." And he was like, "Good luck." And he just drove away.
I love that.
Yeah, he was just like, "Good luck, buddy." And he just kept going because he knows.
Yeah.
Everybody
Every man knows.
Everybody's been in that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it can help not only like when you go do something physical, it can help you in your own mind, but it can also help you when there's that tension in a relationship.
Yeah.
That has served me so much. It's a great part of an escape plan.
Well, it is. And that's why you want to build those things into your life, having a way to go work out, go run, go lift some weights, go clean something, go wash the car. There's any number of things you can do. But sometimes when your mind is jumbled, when you're going negative or you're stressed out, doing something physical a lot of times helps you just deal with that stress.
Yep.
And it kind of gives you a little bit of clarity. Again, it may not fix the problem, but it'll change the way you approach the problem. It can change the way you think about the problem. So if you kind of have it in your mind, okay, if something's happening, I'm going to shift my attention. I'm going to do something physical. It really helps you to go to that good place in your mind of, I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to let my subconscious work on it while I think about breathing while I'm running.
A good way to think about it is your mind is spinning out of control in those negative headspaces. It's just getting faster and faster and faster, like a spinning top, going more and more intense. But when you force your mind to focus on something your body can do, your body can only move so fast.
Yeah.
You can only do so many things at a time.
Yeah.
So it begins to bring them back into alignment.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when your mind, like you were probably still whenever you're mentally spinning out.
Yeah.
But it forces them to come back into a sense of alignment. And so I think that's one of the reasons it's so helpful.
Yeah.
Another big one is going to a different setting. A peaceful setting can make all the difference for a negative headspace.
Well, it's like you said when y'all had the fight, you went for a walk.
Yeah. And
Sometimes
that helped.
just going for a walk. Like yesterday, Yvonne had a hard week at work. They're introducing a new system and it's blowing up. And for me, it was a day full of a lot of busyness. I was up early doing this stuff. So at the end, it was like, hey, let's go for a walk. So we did a walk around the neighborhood, 2.5 mile walk. And you just kind of, I felt better. And I felt better the whole rest of the night.
Yep.
And I didn't feel bad. It was just a lot that day. It was just one of those days. And just going for the walk helped us feel better. And I think for us, some guys, I think that's why they love hunting, is they're out in the woods.
Yeah.
It's very peaceful. They can sit up in a deer stand and they can relax and they can do that. And that's a good thing. And what we want to do is find those things that are ideal, peaceful settings for us. It could be going to a coffee shop, putting on some noise-canceling earphones and having some music and doing some writing or whatever. Find a peaceful place. I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, and you bring up such a good point. A negative headspace doesn't always have to be you're on the edge of blowing up on somebody or blowing up on yourself.
Yeah.
A negative headspace can be just that sense of being burdened.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
being tired. That can also be a good time to implement a gratitude escape plan.
Yeah.
It can just be to shift to where it's like, my baseline of where I'm at right now is just not normal. It's just a little bit lower than it should be. Let me do what y'all did. Go for a
Yeah.
walk or whatever. That can be a huge, huge thing.
Well, and like right now, it's this show's coming out on Christmas Day. So a lot of people, it's the holidays, they're being with family. And sometimes family can be a lot. You get around a bunch of family and it's just getting to you. You can go to the bathroom.
That's true.
Whether you need to go or not, you can go and take 10 minutes of sitting there and everybody thinks you're having some issues. That's okay. You can sit, and if you have a file of funny TikToks, you can just watch them and just kind of get yourself positive up to where, okay, I can do this. You know, you can save a whole thing of, relatives I can laugh at. And that can make you laugh. It can get you in a better place. But you can escape, even in a setting like that, because no one's going to say, no, you can't go to the bathroom. I mean, what are you, 3?
Yeah.
Yes, you can go. And if you need to, just go to the bathroom, get away from everybody. And sometimes that helps you kind of, okay, get some perspective. I laugh at some funny TikToks. Now I can go back to the family.
Yeah, I think that's a great
Yeah.
example. The ultimate porcelain throne. Sometimes that can be the most peaceful setting that there is.
It can be.
The final one, this one's counterintuitive, but it is important. And that is processing your negative feelings. I'll give this from a personal point of view.
Yeah.
I can tend towards perfectionism. And as a perfectionist, a lot of times I will try to push negative thoughts and feelings away
Yeah.
rather than looking at them. I'll go to one extreme or the other. Either I'll look at them and get like caught up in it, or I'll just, I guess, is it called suppression? When you suppress it,
Yeah.
like you just kind of shove it down.
Yep.
Because I had that thing since I was a kid. You know, I'd be vibing and then I'd just blow up one day.
Yeah.
And it's because I'd suppressed everything and then boom. So for me, something that's very helpful for me is actually processing through whatever negative feeling I may be having.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean feeding it and feeding it and feeding it, but it can mean like journaling about it. Like the whole, I don't know if you've ever heard this story. You probably have. Abraham Lincoln writing 2 letters.
Yeah.
The first letter to a person, and that person like made him mad. He would write the first letter, and then he would burn it.
Yeah.
And then he would write the actual letter.
Yeah.
That kind of thing helps me because I need a way to actually process my frustrations,
Yeah.
but it's not in a way where you're destroying another person.
Yeah.
Or it's not in a way where you are worshiping the issue you're going through. A great example of this is the Psalms.
Yeah.
Which you're very into the Psalms right now, of like reading Psalms and praying through them. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the interesting thing about the Psalms is sometimes you read it and you think David was a manic depressive because he'll have one psalm where everything's great, everything's fantastic.
Yeah.
He loves God, he loves everybody. Then the next psalm, everything's horrible. He thinks God's forgotten him. His enemies are out to kill him. But when you read the story of his life was like that. Now, sometimes it was things people were doing to him. Sometimes it was things he did that were just dumb. I think we all have been there.
Yeah.
And what he was doing in the book of Psalms, and I think God is giving us that example, is he was getting it out. And when we journal, when we pray, when we get those feelings out, we're not saying they're right or wrong. They're just our feelings.
That's a good point.
Like you can be mad at God and you can tell him, and he's not going to be offended because he knows already. So when you tell him, you're kind of getting it out. And sometimes that helps you kind of process through it. And you'll see that the way David writes. He'll spend almost the whole psalm, God, you've forgotten me. Why don't you do this for me? Do you hate me? All this. But then at the end of the psalm, he's like, but you're faithful and you're great.
Yeah.
And I love you. You know, and you think, what's up with this? Well, he's getting it out. And then by doing that, he shifts his perspective and he starts seeing, okay, God really is in control. Just recently, I read the end of Job to where God tells Job, hey, brace yourself like a man. I'm going to ask you questions. And that just reading that scares me. If God was to say that to me, I'd probably poop myself. But, you know, But he starts throwing all these questions at Job. Where were you? Where were you? Where were you? And Job finally answers and says, God, I didn't know what I was talking about. You're God. You got it. I'm not going to say anything else. And I think that's where Job was getting it all out.
Mm-hmm.
But God helped him see his perspective. God never told Job he was wrong in what he said. He just says, I've got this. And he showed Job, you can trust me. And that's what Job learned. And sometimes we process those negative things. We genuinely feel them. But after we do it, we get that peace of God that, okay, God really is in control. And I think that's the important thing. You don't want to just hold them inside.
Yep.
You want to get them out. And the person you can get them out to is to God himself. That's where journaling to God, praying them to God, those kind of things are good. You don't have to show them to people. You don't have to blow up on people. But God is a big boy, and he can handle your feelings, and it helps you change that perspective just like it did for David.
Yeah. And that can be part of a good escape plan.
It can. It'd be great.
And then that's not every scenario, but there's plenty of scenarios where you really do need to process those things.
Yeah.
But you're processing it with the goal of laying it out there and then leaving it.
Yep.
Not worshiping it, not obsessing it, not turning it into the core of who you are.
Yeah.
You are saying, all right, let's get this out and look at it and then give it to God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the goal. And like you said earlier, guys, remember last week's session.
Yeah.
Those rhythms of gratitude, that's what's meant to happen consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that help feed an overall baseline mentality that's healthy. This is for the emergency scenarios.
Yeah.
And that's what we're challenging you this Christmas.
Yeah.
This Christmas. No, I had to do it.
You had to.
But our challenge to you is to make a good escape plan.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be crazy complicated. It doesn't have to be 17 steps.
Yeah.
It can be 2 or 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to talk with God about how I'm feeling. And then I'm going to list out at least 10 things that I'm grateful for.
Yep.
You know, it could be something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can experiment with this, find what's most effective for you. But even the intentionality of just having that plan
Yeah.
and being able to go to that whenever things go crazy, that is really going to equip you for being able to stay in an attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, it will.
Consistently. So do that. Merry Christmas. We'll see you in the next show.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.